I have my eye on the movie coming out this weekend called F1 starring Brad Pitt. But specifically, what I have my eye on is what your take on
Yeah.
the movie is. How true is it to the sport as you know it? You know, there have been other racing movies that have come out. You know that we love
Yeah.
these cultural references, these movie references. We have, obviously, Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall. We have Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell. Go back to Steve McQueen and Le Mans. Great movie, Ford versus Ferrari, with Matt Damon. So there's been no shortage of movies about the sport of racing. So I'm curious to see what it's like, and I'm curious to get your take on it.
Do you want my take now?
Welcome to Wait What? Sports Biz Chat with DP and McGhee, the podcast where we take a sometimes irreverent, a sometimes cynical, and yes, even a sometimes serious look at the business of sports. I'm your co-host, Tim McGhee.
And I'm David Parro.
David, what's on your mind on this hot New York City area day?
Yeah, the summer is definitely here.
And time is right.
Yes. I want to talk, I think we can put a wrap on the NBA season, as well as talk about some huge news, I think, that's come out over the last week, and then even right today, this morning. But first, I need to say this, because you went to Pocono this past weekend in support of a client, as a guest of Gibbs Racing, and you were pulling for one Chase Briscoe. So not only did Chase Briscoe win the race, his first ever, with Tim there supporting his client and the team, but JGR's 11 car, driven by Denny Hamlin, came in second. So it was a huge day for JGR. I think we're going to have to reach out to them and just let them know that you're going to have to go to more races. And the thing that makes this poetically beautiful for you, not for me, not for Jake Letta, is that we actually even did a post this week about, the joke where we kind of teased you for choosing Pocono or wanting to go to Pocono because you like the race. But you had a great way, as you always do, to say, screw you guys, I'm going to Pocono. You did. Your guys won. Awesome. Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, Chase Briscoe, great race in the 19 Bass Pro Shops car. My client Campbell's is on the car with the Lance Crackers brand. We had a big event in Campbell's headquarters last week. Chase came, met with executives, signed autographs. We had the show car there. It was very well received. We hosted the Campbell's CEO at the race this weekend along with his wife. They had a fantastic time. They are clearly the good luck charms. But the folks at JGR, what a great job they did at hosting the Campbell CEO and his wife and myself. Just a great day all around. Yeah, you mentioned Denny Hamlin came in second. Denny is the winningest driver ever at Pocono. So JGR apparently has a lot of success on that track.
Yeah. You were mentioning the activation that you just did with Chase and the Campbell's group. And I think some people might listen to this podcast and follow us on social, would just be amazed that we actually have time to do anything else in our lives, like when we work, because this production is obviously of such a high quality that it clearly we put a ton of work and prep into it. So that's just amazing that you're able to do all that.
I haven't slept since the lockdown was lifted in late 2020.
Anyway, all right. So NBA, a lot of things that I want to cover, and I'm not going to I might sound conspiratorial here, but a week or so ago, I talked about Adam Silver holding off on the announcement of the expansion. Everybody's expected there will be two teams expand. The league will expand by two teams, and the speculation has been Vegas and Seattle getting those teams. And he's recently, during the finals, as the opening of the NBA finals, said they're not doing that yet. It may come, it may not. Anyway, a week or so ago, we heard that the Buss family was selling its majority interest in the Lakers to one Mark Walter, who also happens to be the primary owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers, also happens to be the CEO and co-founder of Guggenheim Partners, also happens to be the founder, TWG, the global holding company that owns a ton of sports interests, including a lot of motorsports. So this guy's this guy's definitely got the money, but it's $10 billion is what the valuation of this is. Now, this comes on top of the $6.1 billion deal the Celtics got that was amazing because they didn't even have a good venue deal. They don't own the venue. Same situation in LA, but $10 billion. The Lakers are clearly one of the top global sports properties. So I'm not putting them in saying that they don't deserve to be the highest. But $10 billion without the stadium. And my feeling is that this obviously had been in the works because it caught us a little off guard, maybe not so much as the Luka trade to the Lakers, but we hadn't heard that much talk about this. So it kind of seemed to me anyway to be, wow, that's a pretty big development. So I was wondering if in an effort to maximize what those new franchises will have to pay into the NBA, that the NBA, the league, the association is just milking this to the most opportune time. That's my thoughts. Now, interestingly, we're about to jump in and talk about the T-Wolves as well, because that deal got approved by the Board of Governors today.
I don't think there's any question that Adam Silver is holding off. Even though the public didn't seem to have an inkling that the Buss family was going to be selling their stake in the Lakers, clearly this is something that I'm sure Adam Silver has been aware of for I don't know how long. These deals don't come together overnight, of course. So I don't think there's any doubt that he was holding off on any discussions about expansion until that deal was done. But it certainly, if you're one of the other owners, even if you're James Dolan, who has had many issues with the league, you've got to be pretty happy
Absolutely
with what it looks like right now, coming on the heels of the new media deal. And if you're James Dolan, speaking of him, he's got to be between the Sphere, the Beacon Theater, the theater at Madison Square Garden, Radio City Music Hall, the building, the two teams. He's got to be looking at close to $20 billion, I would think.
I agree. And that's the thing. I mean, first of all, it's the New York market, and it's the Knicks and the Rangers. It's the Knicks. Just say the Knicks.
Yeah.
If the Lakers are, kind of at that valuation, and then they control Madison Square Garden, and they have all these other venues as a piece of it. So he could, he could sell things off on a regular basis just to fund other things he wants to do. So I think he's in a very, good position, even though he tends to be the guy amongst the owners that seems to complain a lot. And I'm not saying he doesn't have some beefs, because he's a big market team when more games go to the national level, and he's one of the, they're one of the teams locally that does really well via RSN. So he does. But let's not make this about Jim Dolan and the Knicks right now. But yes, agree that $20 billion seems about right. And it seems, again, crazy because we're going from 10 to 20, but just make the comparison to what they're in control of here, MSG Entertainment. So amazing. And then just today, the NBA Board of Governors did approve unanimously for Mark Lore and Alex Rodriguez, to take control of the Timberwolves and the Lynx. And that deal went through at 1.5, but apparently was settled on several years ago, like back in 2023, I guess.
Yeah, there was a number of dates at which time Loris and A-Rod's stake would grow. Clearly, Glenn Taylor sold too soon, but can't have seller's remorse at this point.
Right. And that, by the way, that was 2021 where that price, I think, had been agreed to. It's valued at over $3 billion now. And that might have even been before news sunk in on the Lakers number. So I think, this new ownership group is feeling really, really good about that deal. No doubt about that.
For sure.
Yeah. And just to, wrap up, because we talk about all of these good things happening number-wise, financially with the NBA. But as we predicted, the finals TV viewership was not great. It was down, averaged 10.2 million viewers across the 7 games. That's based on Nielsen's number. And it was lowest watched in recent history. The finals was pretty solid. It drew 16.4 million viewers. I think the thing that makes this a little tough on the number side is that, Nielsen is figuring out ways to capture more viewers in the out-of-home audience every year. So it has the benefit of that as well. But I think that while maybe disappointing, I don't think league brass is going to sweat too much given all this other news the fact that they were small market teams, and OKC, a team on the rise, right? We now know all these stars on OKC. And that might not have been the case before. And they clearly were the best team, by the way. They were the best team from the beginning of the year.
Yes, and I don't think they have to blow up that team for salary cap reasons. So you've got the core of Holmgren, Williams, and SGA, of course. Not coincidentally, they're also the stars of the AT&T commercial, which got way, way overplayed. How many do you think those spots? How many of those spots do you think were make goods?
The only thing I'll say, the thing I'll say about that, and it's great for that team, and I think it shows something about the character of that team. I know that might sound odd because obviously they're paid to be in this ad, but this team really vibed, right? I mean, that was an unbelievably tight team.
Yeah, they built the team in a way very distinctly different than a lot of other NBA clubs are built. Homegrown talent, not a lot of free agency signings. I think if you go back, I think the deal to trade Paul George about 4 or 5 years ago, I think set the stage for it with draft picks, and they'll be competing. And the only reason I would say that Indiana, may not be competing next year is because of that horrific injury to Tyrese Haliburton. He's a warrior. He came back from that calf injury and wanted to be there, but went down early in the game with an Achilles heel injury. And you and I were talking about this before we came on the air. I watch Boomer and Gio, which is a local, sports talk radio morning drive time show here in New York, but they're simulcast on CBS Sports Network around the country. And when Haliburton got hurt originally with the calf strain, Boomer Esiason, former NFL quarterback, longtime announcer, said if he comes back, he's going to blow out his Achilles. And unfortunately, Boomer Esiason was right. But he came on after and he said that's just the way it's been because the calf muscle is connected to the Achilles heel tendon, and so that it's a natural occurrence if you come back too soon from a calf injury. And so now, and I certainly understand him playing, but now both he and Jason Tatum will be out for the 25-26 season.
Yeah, that's too bad. Two great stars. The one thing I'll say that, going back to conversations we've had in the past about what was going to be the interest in this particular series, and we know that the NBA is a very star-driven league, and had Steph Curry been playing, had LeBron been playing, had KD been playing in the finals, maybe things would be different. But we got exposed, and I don't mean we, you, and me, but fans got exposed to some really great young basketball players that this league will be able to build on for a while. And it's not that they haven't been in all-star games or whatnot, but I think what Haliburton did throughout this series, even after that choke sign he gave the Knicks where people got annoyed, I mean, you talk about a true warrior during this. So I think, and Silver even said this when people were questioning about, the maybe lack of stars or the lack of big market teams in the finals, is that these are the moments that these guys are able to build upon, and that's when they become these stars. Now, granted, guys like Bird and Magic and MJ came out as bigger stars than these guys did, but still, I think all around it was an unbelievable playoff series. We aren't surprised by these numbers in the NBA Finals, but these numbers from Boston, from LA, the sale going through in Minneapolis, I mean, and the draft tonight in Brooklyn with Cooper Flagg coming out as the number one pick. I mean, it's a good time to be an owner in the NBA.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Ace Bailey out of Rutgers did not participate in any camps, did not work out for any teams. He was widely regarded as a as a lottery pick. We'll see if that's still the case. But we're not done talking about basketball. That's true. But can I just say, I hated him when he played against the Knicks, but I loved seeing him play against OKC was T.J. McConnell. Oh my goodness, that guy's like a water bug. Doesn't seem to miss either.
Well, I think we saw that throughout with a lot of different players. I mean, there wasn't some of the criticism, as we've talked about before with the NBA, is does it matter? And it clearly mattered. I saw great basketball played with a lot of heart. Sure, The travel calls seem ridiculous. Some of the stuff they call seems ridiculous, but players were playing. I want to make sure that we get to you because we do have a great guest coming up, but I'm going to throw it over to you for your big story of the week.
Just a couple of quick hits. Stanley Cup playoffs, if we're talking about ratings.
Mm-hmm.
A rematch between Edmonton and Florida. Florida repeated. Averaged 2.5 million in the finals, down 40% from the previous year, and down from 2 years ago when they were last on TBS. Gary Bettman can't be too happy with that, but we'll see. A couple of other quick hits. Wrexham, the club that we have talked about many times in the past, the ownership group led by Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds are now looking to raise capital, and they're doing so at a $475 million valuation for the club, which is absurd on two levels. And when I say absurd, meaning, amazing. Number one, that's an incredible valuation for a second division club. There are first division clubs that wouldn't sell for that much money. And number two, maybe the smartest business owners in the history of sports. They invested $2.5 million in that club about 5 years ago when they bought it. So kudos to those guys. And then the last thing, keeping on the theme of English football, Manchester United had their worst season since the Premier League started over 30 years ago, 34, I believe. Since the Premier League started, they finished 15th. There was some concern, albeit unfounded, early in the year that they might be in danger of relegation. They announced that they have ticket prices that are going up next year. Talk about tone deaf. Talk about not being in touch with your fans. Some tickets going from 89 euros up to 131 euros to see them play in Old Trafford.
Yeah, I haven't followed this, and to see if they're using the angle that they need to do this to make sure that they're able to stay competitive in the player transfer windows, because it has obviously gotten crazy competitive. But it seems crazy. Going back to the Wrexham situation, I mean, it certainly does show the power of marketing to a degree, but more importantly, the power of storytelling, which I think. And I'm not saying this just because these guys make movies and television shows, or producers or actors and so forth. They've told a great story around this, and they've been able to. They've been in position to it. That was their fortune. But they went into the situation with this idea, and they told that story, and that story led them to being able to do this. That, of course, the documentary series that they've done following their ownership of this club in a small town in Wales. So it's just been pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, Wrexham, a town down on its luck, hadn't been promoted in decades, I believe. And so they picked the right club. They were able to tell a story. The people in the town become characters in this movie, so to speak, right, in this documentary series. And I am sure there are no shortage of would-be owners out there, whether they be celebrity or otherwise, who think they can replicate that. And I think that is the height of hubris, to think that you can recreate what McElhenney and Reynolds have done with Wrexham. I think that's sort of once in a blue moon type situation.
The fact that they've been able to build that and come 2 times, get promoted. And it made me think back to that conversation we had recently about the valuations of some of the MLS teams, which was surprising, right? Of the 50 clubs, top 50 valued football clubs around the world, a large number of them. No league had as many as Major League Soccer. The non-relegation factor certainly does help with that, by the way. And neither of us, I don't think, suspects that MLS would ever go to that model, even though they're looking to get on the calendar model of the rest of the soccer schedule. But
part of the reason those valuations are so high is because that risk which is inherent in ownership of a club in any other league around the world, is not there.
Not exist.
I wish they would have done it in the beginning. I would love to see them do it now. I don't ever foresee it happening. What you would have to do is you would have to backstop owners and say, listen, if you are relegated, we will make you whole for 5 years, say, argument's sake, right?
Yeah, the buy-in prices right now in American sports, and particularly soccer, because that's the only sport where it would be possibly considered, it's baked in. I mean, your entries are, that's baked in that it's not going to be there.
Right.
So, yeah, it would
And
be
it'll be
a
interesting.
big lift. I don't see it happening.
We're hoping to get a guest on in a couple of weeks who can speak very, very intelligently and from a close-up
Unlike us.
perspective. Yeah. Wait, what? About expansion in Major League Soccer. I will leave it at that. I'm not going to mention names. But what I will say is this, that the San Diego club, which was the 30th team to join the league, was sold for $500 million. Now, I think there was some belief that the next club would go for 6 and 7. I think it's probably going to be higher than that, depending on when Don Garber and the league decides to open it up for expansion again, and based on these recent valuations.
Hey, we have a great guest coming up. I think it's a good time to take a break.
It's time for our guest.
With the 4th of July weekend almost here, we are very fortunate to be welcoming in Julie Giese, president of the NASCAR Chicago Street Race, which will take place on Sunday, July 6th in downtown Chicago, a place that's very near and dear to me. Before taking the helm at this exciting installment on the NASCAR calendar, Julie served 4 years as president of Phoenix Raceway, one of my favorites, actually. She also held executive positions at the NASCAR league level and at International Speedway Corp, the track operation organization now owned by NASCAR. She came up on the PR side of the business with stints at 2 legendary tracks, Daytona International and Watkins Glen. Julie, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. You've served as the president of the NASCAR Chicago Street Race since its inaugural race in 2023. Before we take a look ahead at the 2025 race set to run in a week and a half, take us back, give us the highlights of how this very unique event came about.
It's really interesting because this was an event that started on the virtual side of our business. So our leadership has talked a lot about doing street races, and when we did one, we knew we wanted it to be in a really iconic location. COVID came, our drivers weren't able to race, just like every other sport that was impacted. And so our drivers actually pivoted really quickly, and they were racing virtually through a program, a partner that we have called iRacing, and it's very realistic to what the drivers experience every week while they're at the racetrack. So we created an iRacing Pro Invitational. So our drivers were actually racing virtually on the tracks that we were supposed to be at, and our broadcast partners broadcast them. It was just a really great way to just continue the momentum of the sport during a very difficult time, obviously. And during that time, we were like, well, what other courses could we look at? Like, it's virtual, let's get creative. And our leadership team connected with the city of Chicago and came in, scanned the streets around Grant Park, and created a virtual Chicago street race. And that was run in 2021, July of 2021. It was broadcast on FS1, and it was kind of one of those things. Again, it was virtual. Coming out of that event, our drivers are like, you realize this could actually work. Great proof of concept. And it really showed the officials here at the city what that could be from a commercial perspective. I mean, it was an hours-long commercial for the city of Chicago. You obviously were in the most beautiful part with the lake and the skyline and just all these amazing views. And so that's really what started the conversations. And a year later, we announced that we were going to make the virtual street race a reality, and came to downtown Chicago in July of 2023.
Yeah, as David mentioned at the outset, it's going to be the end of the long holiday weekend, July 6th. As you just alluded to, it's going to be the 3rd installment of the race. If you're a fan that's either watching on TNT or attending in person, what can fans expect? Is there anything that you're particularly excited about in the race's 3rd iteration this year?
It's so fun to watch, whether you're in person, which, again, I'm the promoter. I want you to join and come visit and be part of the event, or just the broadcast team does a remarkable job showcasing this event. It's a very competitive race for our drivers. That was one of the big questions as we went into the first year, was street racing tends to be narrow because you're on city streets. How competitive can it be? Can our drivers, can they pass? And that was very much the first year, it became very clear this was a very competitive track. Our drivers enjoyed it. They could pass, lots of passing zones. And so I think what you'll see is a really unique way to showcase NASCAR, but also the city of Chicago. Again, where we are, and from a broadcast perspective, you just can't get away from all the views and all the things that are around Grant Park in the city. So you'll see a lot of just that, the beauty of Chicago. But then you see it again, this connection with racing. You see the Field Museum, and these cars are running right through it, like right next to it, the Art Institute. It's pretty special.
I remember watching that first year in particular, even though you had some weather last year as well, and going, oh my gosh, no, it can't be happening on this. But then the race actually ended up being great, and all the drivers seemed to love it.
They did, and it's so funny. And that's like the it's like you gotta like weigh it from a competition perspective. The weather does add an element to it. And that first year, I mean, 9 inches of rain that day. I mean, we didn't need that, but still being able to get the race in and it being as competitive as it was, knowing that this was the first time most of our drivers had even run a street race. Shane Van Gisbergen, the winner of that first year, was in his very first NASCAR race, and it was just remarkable to see what he did. He came from a background that raced very similar courses like that. But then you come to the following year, last year, just about ready to give the command to start engines, and we start to get a little precipitation. So quickly switch to the wet weather package. That's the beauty of the competition. We can run in some of the wet weather, obviously not standing rain, but it does add quite the intrigue to the competition.
Yeah. So Tim and I are on a mission to promote SVG as the new Boris said.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Anyway, all right. So Chicago has a history in NASCAR. I mean, Santa Fe Speedway is raced out in the southwest, southwest of the city, or had for a number of years, short track. And then, of course, Chicagoland Speedway from 2001 to 2019. So it had a history. What was so important about the market to bring back racing? And then, obviously, I mean, I think you've covered off on bringing it downtown and being iconic. But what was it about the market? We know it's the third largest city in the country, but to be out of the area, or if you call Joliet Chicago, and make sure that you were back in this market.
You said it, it's the third largest market. That's important for us. We already have a very strong fan base in this, in the Chicago DMA, over 1 million NASCAR fans. And you mentioned Chicagoland Speedway. We raced there for almost 20 years. And we knew that especially in the Midwest, you really have a great kind of base of NASCAR fans. But really for us, the street race was about, let's take it to a location, take it to the people, and introduce our sport to a new audience. That very first year, over 80% of our attendees were at their very first NASCAR race. And that was really a key focus for us. They came from outside the city. They came from 15 different countries that first year. So it's driving tourism. People are coming to see it. And so that's really what was important to us. And the other piece too, we talked about like the iconic location. I mean, I don't want to pass that by, because that was critical for us. We're going to host our first street race. It was NASCAR's 75th year anniversary when we came to Chicago. We wanted to make sure that it was in a very, very iconic location. And when you tuned in, we very quickly knew this is something that is very special. And so all that coming together was a fun year. And again, we just continued to introduce our sport to the new audiences, whether they're coming downtown and attending in person, or if they're watching on television.
Getting anything done with a big city like the city of Chicago, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, Julie, because I know that you have relationships that you need to keep healthy and strong. But getting things done in a big city like Chicago are not always easy. I mean, let's face it, there's always competing interests and stakeholders and so forth. So what were some of the things that you did as a race organizer to deal with either politicos or community organizations to make sure that you created and now foster good relations between the race and NASCAR and the city and people of Chicago?
I'd say this is the area where I learned the most in that first year, especially, not only myself personally, but just from a sport perspective. You know, when we announced this event and then I wasn't even in my role at that time. I was still at Phoenix Raceway, but I was helping from a feasibility team perspective. And about a month after the event announcement, then I was named to be the president of the race. And I remember that very first day, Cara Bachman with the Chicago Sports Commission, who's been integral in this event from day one with us, she introduced me to a lot of people in the city. And the common theme that I heard from all of them was, you have to be present and you have to be part of this city. Coming in, shutting down streets, running a race and leaving is just not going to work. It's not going to fly. Chicagoans are not going to, it's not authentic. It's not how we do things. And so it became very clear what we needed to do. And that was, we needed to be part of the community. The good part about that is NASCAR does that better than anybody, in my opinion. It's my 25th season with NASCAR, and it is really important for NASCAR to be a member of the communities where we race and to give back. And so we really focused in on that. We opened an office here in Chicago. We have a team that is dedicated to Chicago 365 days a year. And what that means for us is we gave ourselves a goal that first year. We're going to touch all 50 wards and we're going to make an impact. We're going to have a connection point. And that was a lofty goal. I didn't realize quite how lofty that was until we really got into it. But we hit that goal and we have continued to develop that and grow on that base that we created that very first year. And what it showed was that we wanted to be part of the community that is real, that's authentic, that is NASCAR. And that's been very helpful for us. The other thing too, I think, is just being open to the conversation. And we know that first year, again, it's an unknown. I'm at events trying to explain what is about to happen. And I have a computer model and I'm just asking everyone to trust me. And, it's a learning and it's a process. And I tried really hard to just listen and respond where we could by making adjustments or providing additional information. That first year, I did over 150 community meetings with different residents, businesses, buildings. We still, to this year, even in our third year, we canvass every single business and resident building that is connected to the footprint in a 3-block radius. So 750 some touch points. And that has been critical because, again, we don't know, we're not experiencing the same things that a business or a resident is. So how do we get better? It's just having those conversations.
Yeah, that was a question that, could have gone a couple different ways, and she just completely hit it out of the park, right? She nails everything you have to do to make things like this work. I also want to highlight one other thing, because I know you do a program supporting DePaul's sport management program where students come out and help assist with the race. It's a program that a good friend of mine, Andy Clark, is very, very proud of and is very appreciative of the race and your leadership on making that happen, Julie.
Yeah, this is the thing that I love about Chicago is the opportunities, the integration, the connection points, the unexpected and the expected. And Andy and his team, everyone at DePaul has been tremendous partners with us. They're right next to the footprint, their downtown campus. And very early on, we got integrated with them and had students working on different class projects. This year, we have that summer class that is dedicated to the race. And DePaul just announced they're going to sponsor a car in the race this year in the NASCAR Cup Series race with Michael McDowell. So it's really fun to see over the 3 years how the event has evolved and how the support has grown. We were out on the footprint yesterday. We've taken 42% off of the build time from the very first year. So we're from 43 days to 25 days. And we've been we told everyone, year one, just we're going to learn, we're going to get better, and we're going to continue to push ourselves to be better. And so we actually took 2 weeks this year from last year off of the schedule. And we were out on Michigan Avenue, and one of our operations workers was telling me that some residents came over and were concerned that we were starting too late. And are we going to get it done? And I'm like, I will take those conversations. And so it's been good to see. And DePaul's been a great partner with us, and Andy making all the connections. It's been great.
Talk about being good neighbors, right? Cutting up by
Absolutely.
40%.
Yeah. Your NASCAR resume, you just mentioned how long you've been within the NASCAR ecosystem. Your resume is rather remarkable there. Tell us some highlights as to where all those other stops, how they help prepare you for this moment of leadership and at this particular race.
It's funny, and I've talked to Andy's class about this actually, when you are graduating college, like you think you know what you want to do, but that road is going to be very windy and you just need to be along for the ride. And mine was definitely that. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, so I went to school for agriculture. And I'm putting that degree to great use here in motorsports. But yeah, I started working at it. Well, actually, let me even take a step back. I graduated college with my agriculture degree, but I had done an internship that I did not like. And I'm like, I need to find another job. Like I need a new plan. And I sent my resume out to all the racetracks around the country because I was a race fan. My dad's a race fan. Like how hard could it be to get a job? And I got a lot of rejection letters at the time. So started working for an advertising agency. And just by luck of the draw, I got connected to somebody at Watkins Glen International in upstate New York. Legendary road course, beautiful part of the country. And I moved there for an entry-level PR position in 2001. I remember pulling into the track for the first day and I had an 88 sticker on my car because I was a Dale Jarrett fan. And I'm like, I probably need to take that off. And so I spent 4 years at Watkins Glen working on a number of different events on the PR and then marketing side, and had the opportunity to move to Daytona in 2004 and work for our hallowed ground, the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. That was really a huge opportunity for me. And Daytona runs so many different events. And I learned a lot about myself. I was the VP of marketing when I moved from the Speedway to our construction team. But during those 12 years that I was at Daytona, I had a manager that just was very like, if you want to try something, try it. And I got to dabble on so many different things, whether it was the Rolex 24 or the Daytona Supercross. Certainly, everyone knows the Daytona 500, but we renovated Daytona while I was there, $400 million renovation. And I kind of fell into this project manager role with our design and development team, which is an internal group. And so when we opened Daytona, the new Daytona, we were just getting ready to do a new project at Phoenix Raceway. And so they asked if I would join the construction team and kind of be that project manager again. Really, I was a translator. I helped the racetrack speak construction and helped the construction team speak a little bit racetrack, and worked on the renovation in Phoenix for 2 years. And as we were getting ready to open that, there was a leadership change, and I threw my hat in the ring just to kind of get the experience, and had the opportunity then to lead the team at Phoenix Raceway for 4 years before coming to Chicago. So it's definitely been a windy road. And I left Daytona. Our HR team asked if I wanted to be a track president, and my answer was absolutely not. They remind me of that still, but it's just one of those things where you learn a lot about yourself. And like, I never thought I'd be in construction and operations, but all of that truly has prepared me for what we're doing in Chicago. I mean, we are truly building a temporary race site in 2 weeks and then quickly moving it out and getting returning Grant Park to what it is, the Chicago Sprint Door.
So as we mentioned, Chicago's the only traditional street race on the schedule right now, but there is some talk that there will be a street race added in Southern California. The market I heard mentioned was San Diego. That remains to be seen, of course. But what are your thoughts on how street races fit within the overall NASCAR ecosystem and the personality of the sport?
I think street races present a really unique opportunity for us, again, to continue to introduce our sport to a new audience, because you do have the ability to really take your sport anywhere. You have the permanent facilities that we have great races at, but you don't see racetracks aren't being built on a daily basis in new markets. And so for us to continue to push ourselves to new markets, to introduce our sport to new audiences, it's critical that we really think outside the box, be bold and innovative on what that schedule looks like and how we do that. And that really, the first time that we did that was at the LA Memorial Coliseum. And, it's a football field. We paved a racetrack and ran an exhibition race. And at the time, everyone thought that was never possible. And it was a great proof of concept. So that first year for Chicago, it wasn't lost on anyone that was working on that race. Not only were we doing something that the sport had never been done, but it was a proof of concept that if we could prove that this can work in Chicago, it opens the opportunity up for our sport that we've never had before. No pressure. thankfully we were able to, execute an amazing event. And so I think things like street races and just being creative about the type of courses that we're running on is really important for the future growth of our sport.
Yeah, there's no doubt some of the things NASCAR has done over the last 5 or so years, I think, have been quite breakthrough, and it's almost like we can't wait to hear what's next. We're going to skip one of the normal closing questions, because you've done such a great job of taking us through your background already, which is normally how do you get your start in the business. I think you took us through that. I do want to say you had the opportunity to work for two of my favorite people that I've met through the motorsports world, and that's Brian Sperber and Joey Chitwood, who I know it sounds like you work both closely on the Daytona side with Joey, and then at Phoenix with Brian. But we do have a closing question for you. We expect a lot. We expect a lot from our guests on this, and we get a lot.
Okay.
And we're confident in you, Julie. And that is this. What one piece of advice would you offer to someone looking to break into the sports business?
It is don't give up, and look for every opportunity. And even if it's not something that you think is where you want to be, if there's an opportunity, put your hat in the ring, or try it out, or just get that experience of, I think that's incredibly important. I think sometimes we get so focused on, I want to be X, Y, and Z in sports, and I want to do this specific role. And again, I never thought I was going to be running a racetrack, a track president, and you have to be open to different opportunities. So if you want to work in sports, and you want to work in sports and marketing, but there's a job opening on the ticketing side, look at it and have the conversation. And then the other thing I'd say too, and I know you said one thing, but I'm too, is networking is critically important. Sports is a very small network. That there is a lot of, we all work with one another and support one another. And so wherever you can network and show initiative, I think that's incredibly important, because as you can imagine, a lot of people do want to work in sports. So when a position opens, the number of resumes you get is substantial. And so having that connection point, that networking, a mentor, somebody in sports that can, just make a quick call or send an email and say, hey, just can you take a look at so-and-so's resume? They've applied. That goes a very, very long way.
Awesome stuff.
One little tidbit for you, though. I'm going to tell you. So Brian Sperber is actually who hired me for my very first job at Watkins Glen International.
Oh, that's right. I forgot he was at Watkins Glen before that.
Yeah, he was the track president.
Of course he was. I used to love Watkins Glen.
It's the best.
I was at McDonald's back in the day. We actually sponsored the Inner Loop, or I remember. Julie, amazing. Thank you very much for joining us. We can't wait to watch the race on July 6th. So good luck with everything from today through that. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Back. Tim, great visit with Julie Giese of NASCAR Chicago Street Race. It was a lot of fun, learned a lot of things. Thought I knew a fair amount about that race, but she brought us up to speed on everything happening there. So I'm very excited to see that in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we do get some great guests, don't we?
We sure do. We sure do. I can't wait to come on Sports Biz Chat. All right. We're at that time. Taking a peek forward. Tim, what do you have your eye on?
Well, I have my eye on the movie coming out this weekend called F1, starring Brad Pitt. But specifically, what I have my eye on is what your take on the movie is. How true is it to the sport as you know it? There have been other racing movies that have come out. You know that we love these cultural references, these movie references. We have, obviously, Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall. We have Talladega Nights with Will Ferrell. Go back to Steve McQueen and Le Mans. Great movie, Ford versus Ferrari, with Matt Damon. So there's been no shortage of movies about the sport of racing. So I'm curious to see what it's like, and I'm curious to get your take on it.
Do you want my take now?
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it. I've seen a fair amount of it. There were two big premieres. They just happened, one in New York, one in London. It's Jerry Bruckheimer film, so it's going to have it's out of the
So there'll be aliens.
well, it's out of the Top Gun Maverick, genre. Same director, same writer, same producer. So that's what I think people can expect. I think the big criticism among the hardcores has been no way a guy's out of the sport for that long. The storyline is this older guy comes back to sport. Brad Pitt comes back and races in F1. He's been out of it for like 3 decades or something, which does seem a little ridiculous given the advancement of the machines.
Well, listen, probably 10 of those years were the Oceans movies.
Right. Well, it's not 30 years of making movies about driving a Formula One car. Anyway, so my go-to F1 podcast, by the way, is the Race F1 podcast. They do a great job of covering stuff, and they talked about the authenticity of it. They've even interviewed Bruckheimer. And the thing that's weird about F1 is that any of the on-track, like weird shit that happens scenarios all probably have happened in F1. Like just the last race, one McLaren driver, Lando Norris, at the end of the race makes some insane pass on his teammate who he's competing for the championship, Oscar Piastri, and he wrecks himself. Now, you'd watch that in a movie and say, well, that would never happen. Well, it does happen. And with the way the FIA distributes rules and penalties, anything happens. So I think they're on fairly safe ground there. Listen, the goal of what Bruckheimer said he wanted to accomplish for existing fans is to show that he did it the right way. Lewis Hamilton was very involved in this as kind of a technical producer. So they were trying to get things right. They actually had these actors, including Brad Pitt, in the race cars. So they tried to do things right, but this is a giant commercial for Formula One. And the one thing I'll say from a business side is that this is what F1's really good at. They did it with Drive to Survive, and they're the one sport that should be able to pull this off and actually use it to grow more audience. We've seen how much it's being advertised right now. And I do think it has the potential to do it. Unlike things like Hard Knocks that I think play to the hardcore fan already, whereas these things can play to people that haven't yet discovered this particular sport. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think, listen, it's not a documentary, but there is that fine line between being true to the sport and authentic to those people who know what they're watching, and appealing to a broad enough base that the movie makes a good return on the producer's investment. So I'm curious to see the fact that they have drivers involved. I think we'll touch upon one thing, but what I know about the film industry is if given a chance or given a choice between veracity and drama, the director is going to choose drama every time.
Right.
That's just the way the movie industry works. So.
Well, what we do know is that F1 leadership was very involved, all the team principals, most of the drivers, and they brought them along. The drivers were at the premieres. In fact, they brought the drivers down from Montreal after that race and scheduled the premiere in New York City immediately after that before they headed back mostly to Europe, and they race in Austria this week. So I'm looking forward to seeing the full piece. There's been a lot of promos, a lot of brand tie-ins as we've seen, and we'll see if it does well. Hats off to everybody involved. But I got to see a lot of the filming. I was on the grid once when they were filming at Silverstone outside of London, and that was all very cool. Brad Pitt was at races quite a bit, so it was all pretty cool. So it's nice to see it all culminated. Anything else?
No, that's it.
That was all right. I do have to give a couple shout outs here. Number one to Jordan Bressler, who is the founder and CEO at TSMGI outside of Chicago. Jordan was very helpful in helping us get Julie scheduled to do the show today. Jordan runs a great shop there. He's a dear friend for over 30 years. I can't believe I'm saying that, but yeah, I think I've known him for that long. And a great guy. So thank you to him. I did have the F1 bit on as well, but we've already covered that. So the other thing I do have my eye on is FTC has given formal approval of the Omnicom Interpublic merger. And one of the things because we know that both companies have big time sports marketing, experiential agencies, labels in their portfolio. the marketing arm, Momentum, Octagon, etc. And I'm curious, Optimum Sports, I'm curious as to how that's all going to stay. Is it all going to stay the same with this acquisition of Interpublic by Omnicom? And obviously the media power that this company will now have, which was, I think, one of the things people were worried about and wondered if it would get the approval necessary. I'm a little worried about that because that's a huge amount of money in the hands of this agency when it comes to media buying.
It'll be interesting to see. I still have some stock in IPG going back to my days early in my career with Momentum.
Are you getting a nice premium on it? It just sold for like $15 billion or something or whatever.
Well, I haven't looked at it. I don't have a ton of stock in it, but it's moved about as much as the retired guy who sits at the starter's box at the municipal course over the last 25 years.
$13.5 billion, by the way. That was the sale price. All right. You ready to wrap?
Yeah, let's do it.
Again, thank you to Julie Giese of NASCAR Chicago Street Race for spending time with us today. Most importantly, of course, thank you for spending a little time with us as well. Just to kind of hit on this as we do at the end of every show, you can find us almost anywhere at DP and McGhee across all our different channels. I do want to say this, that my TikTok skills, they're like advancing like at AI levels, like so quickly. I mean, you have to check us out on TikTok because of that. At some point, the posts may actually be good. That's what I'm talking about here. So check us out there. Be sure to share with friends that might be interested. Of course, that means a lot to us, and we do appreciate it. So that's it. Until next time, I'm DP. He's McGhee, and we'll talk soon.